A very good evening. You're watching India Today on social media. I am Nabila Jamal. Let me quickly take you through the roundup of the day's news. I'm going to start with the sedition law that's grabbed headlines here extensively. In fact, today what happened in court was certainly historic because the apex court has taken a good look at the sedition law and has asked the centre to review the sedition law, considering that successive governments have so long been accused of misusing the sedition law, arm twisting people in the name of the sedition law. The centre today has agreed that they're going to look into the sedition law, but what is historic is that the court has now decided to keep the law in abeyance. So that means that the law will be on hold. No fresh cases can be filed under section 124A, and if those existing cases, people who have been imprisoned, who are currently languishing in prison over sedition charges, they now have an opportunity to appeal for bail. So this certainly has come as a historic move because we're looking at several people, including journalists, including activists, people who've said lots of things in the name of freedom of speech, who've probably said something against the government of the day, or who've said something truly seditious. They are currently in prison, can also face up to lifetime imprisonment if they are convicted. But so far, we believe that whatever cases have been filed under sedition law, they can now appeal for bail. Many of them, it's a cumbersome process to even for the government as well, if they have to really, or the police, if they have to really convict a person under sedition law, it is cumbersome. It takes years before a person is actually, to prove it in the first place is difficult because you also have freedom of speech on one hand that the constitution allows. So what really is counted or quoted as seditious? So this is a very difficult crime to prove. And that said, for people who have been booked under sedition law, face imprisonment for years together before they can actually prove themselves not guilty, or before the police can prove them guilty. So this law being kept in abeyance is certainly historic. It's a 150-year-old law. In fact, the British who actually imposed that law in India and arrested people like Mahatma Gandhi, our freedom fighters, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, these are people who were actually arrested under the sedition law under the British rule to only strike down some freedom movements at that point. Britain itself has quashed that law. While the UK has quashed the law, it appears that the colonial era law that currently still exists in India, we are still mulling over whether or not to quash it. So this is certainly historic, as the court has now decided to keep the law in abeyance and allow and in fact ask the centre to inform states that no fresh FIRs under section 124A of sedition law can be filed. All right, so that's that. Let me take you through marital rape. This is a plea that was filed before court, the Delhi High Court, that was hearing a plea on marital rape that needs to be criminalized. This is what the petition asked for. And the petitioner did say that, how is it fair that a rape is considered rape unless the lady is married to the man? If in a marriage, if a man rapes a woman, a husband rapes his wife, then it's not considered criminal. And how is that fair? Anything by force, anything without consent must be deemed as rape, and it must be criminalized. So this was the petition that was in fact put forth before Delhi court, and the Delhi court took up the matter for hearing, but it appeared that the court decided that the matter must be reviewed because it needs substantial legal approach and must really be dissected thoroughly, because there are several other countries, not just India, where marital rape as such is not even a term. They do not consider this as a crime. A lot of talk about how if once you're married, then you are supposed to be consenting, and if it is by force, then really nobody would know. It's all up to you to sort a situation like that within marriage. It is not considered as rape. So you have of course men's rights activists also saying that women would eventually then use, if marital rape is criminalized, then it would be easy for women to misuse this law as well. But a lot of talk around this. It of course does need legal legal approach. It needs to be really thoroughly scanned, and a judgment must be given, and it can't be done by haste. That's exactly what the Delhi court has said, and they've tossed this matter now to the Supreme Court. So, moving on, we have this story that came in today on the Gyanvapi Mosque, the controversy about how inside the Gyanvapi Mosque in Uttar Pradesh, there there lies several symbols connected to the Hindu religion, and the mosque, the back of the mosque, in fact, the area that falls right at the back of the mosque, at one point, decades ago, had a Hindu structure and a Hindu temple, and there were Hindus who would worship at the back of the mosque, Muslims would worship on the front part of that mosque, of that building, and the behind would be Hindus who would carry out their prayers. In fact, it was almost in two levels, basically sort of a basement area where the Hindus would worship, because they had the Hindu structures and symbols of Hinduism that were placed all along the basement area of that mosque, and the back area, and the front was the mosque. So at one point there were people who were Muslims who were praying there, and as well as the Hindus who were praying at the back part of the mosque. But then there was a crackdown. The entire area behind the mosque was locked up. This happened decades ago, even before independence. And now it seems like Hindus are now wanting to reclaim that space. So the controversy has escalated to a point where the matter has now been placed in court. And the UP court has now decided that they want to carry out a survey inside that mosque. They want to allow for a survey, a team of a committee that involves advocates, and have directed the survey committee to actually take a video of the space inside the mosque and try and establish what is the significance of Hinduism inside that mosque area. So that survey has obviously been resisted by the Muslim management, the committee of that mosque, the Muslims heading that mosque, that committee, the Muslim committee heading the Gyanvapi Mosque, have cited the Places of Worship Act of 91, which says that any religious structure that stood post-independence, post-1947, cannot be touched. So this is a law that came in 1991 that very clearly said that no religious structure can be touched. If it was the same after independence, after 1947, it remains the same. It will not be touched. So citing that, and it also meant that no videography, no tampering with the religious site, etc. So the Muslim committee of that mosque is now opposing for any survey or videography, because they say that goes completely against the existing law of Places of Worship Act. But nonetheless, the court is going to be hearing that matter and going to be deciding on how and when exactly will the survey be carried out. It seems like the UP government is also backing this. Ultimately, they do want to know if Gyanvapi Mosque has Hindu religious symbols. And today, India Today's exclusive report, where we managed to speak to the videographer who actually took pictures and videos of that mosque right from the back of that mosque, very clearly showed several Hindu symbols that were significant to the Hindu religion. And this really shows that there has been that there's great connection with Hinduism that mosque has, or rather, it was part mosque, part temple, but the temple part was shut off, and now should it be open, should it be allowed for Hindus to worship at the back part of the mosque, is the debate that still rages on. A quick word on NEET examinations. Now, we know that across the country, NEET exams are due to be held in about a week's time, about a week or 10 days. And of course, NEET aspirants are really, really upset, because they believe that NEET counseling took place very late because of the COVID pandemic. There was hardly, it delayed endlessly, and finally the counseling that took place is not yet come to an end. Even before the counseling for NEET ends, the examinations begin. So students are really worried that 18 grueling subjects, medical subjects, is impossible for them to study within this short period of time, because the counseling has not yet ended, and then they're expected to write the exams in barely about 10 days. So they've appealed to the government, they've appealed to court as well. We hear that the court is going to take up an urgent hearing on this matter the 13th of May. All eyes set on the court now, whether they decide if there could be some delay in NEET examinations. Students are asking for at least 8 to 10 weeks of delay for the exams to take place, or they want it to be deferred by 8 to 10 weeks, because they want to thoroughly study their subjects. So of course, if this could be done, then this is great, because really, what's the loss or what's the harm in allowing students a little more time? Because it's no brainer, and it's factual that their counseling began late. There was a lot of lag because COVID-19 pandemic. There was no access to counseling at that point, and due to that, because of the delay in counseling, it seems like everything has been delayed, but the center has so far not agreed to push the exams any further. So students only asking what's the harm in pushing it. If anything, we do better, there'll be better performance. So why not agree to our demands? Let's see what the court says on this matter. The government is of course denied to postpone the examination. Now as I wrap here, a quick word on Sri Lanka. We're looking at some really disturbing visuals coming in from Sri Lanka as we see civilians out on the streets in violent protests. In fact, they're torching homes of ministers. They're torching home of the home of former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was burnt down. And he's now rushed to the naval base in Sri Lanka, the Trincomalee naval base, only to take refuge because he's been threatened by the people of Sri Lanka. Many of them now demanding that he be arrested because he allegedly, according to the public, he has allegedly instigated violence that led to at least 8 lives, the death of 8 people in those violent protests. So Sri Lanka is really facing unprecedented crisis. Their economy has come down to a complete depletion. They're barely having any access to food, complete scarcity of food, water for that matter. They're finding a shortage, long power cuts, and literally their life has come to a massive standstill. And it appears, looking at the situation and the disturbing visuals that we see on screens, the military now, from what we also saw, India Today is the only channel who's been on ground reporting this live. The military now in Sri Lanka, it appears, is all set to take over because the government has collapsed. There is no government in Sri Lanka anymore. They're at the brink of a civil war, and it appears from the visuals that we get, the military now almost putting up checkposts at every point, literally shoot at sight orders that have been given to anybody trying to disturb law and order. And that said, we understand now that maybe the military will take over to try and stabilize the law and order situation for the moment here. In fact, I should tell you that India has offered a $1 billion relief package to Sri Lanka, but that really is a drop in the ocean because they're really facing massive debts. They're hoping to find a lot more help coming from various other countries, and now their only hope is also the IMF. Let's all prayers with Sri Lankans. Let's hope they recover soon enough.